We're grateful for this university and for the students and the faculty. We ask you to bless us as we go through our second round of midterms, that we will do well and we well for them. And we love you and receive these things in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Thanks, Gina. Okay. So as far as announcements go, thanks to all who participated last week. We had some awesome field trips. And who was all at Stadium Cleanup this past weekend? Sweet. Okay. We have an announcement about that coming up, so thank you for helping out. So there's an SEAU Young Member Group. It's the Structural Engineers Association of Utah, and that's November 8th, so that's next week at 6 p.m. There is pizza, but make sure you email Aaron if you're interested. So I'll leave that up for a minute. Basically, you meet up in a room. It's a webinar. So someone in Utah presents on some structural engineering topic, and you eat pizza and watch them talk about it. It's pretty fun. So yeah, make sure you email Aaron so he knows how much pizza to get. Okay, this is going down in 5 seconds. Take your pictures. Okay, it's also on the blog, so yeah, check that. So, check the blog for Habitat for Humanity signups. We might be changing things because of the weather, so make sure all your information is correct on there so we can send out emails to update you. Also, we have a really cool project building a footbridge for Saratoga Springs. Okay, that was close. Anyway, and we need welders. So the bridge is all designed. So if you know how to weld, go to the blog. There's a sign up, and you can help us out with this cool project, and it'll be awesome. So.
Can I make just a quick comment about the Habitat for Humanity service project? And, this is something people signed up for quite some time ago. And in the past, we've had a little bit of a problem with people who signed up and then they didn't show up. A lot of times that's not a problem. It's a problem with Habitat for Humanity because they depend on us being there. Everybody who signed up. So if you didn't sign up, or if you did sign up, make sure you're there. If you signed up and you can't go, make some arrangements, have somebody fill in for you. They need the people. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Dr. Borough. So check the sign-up sheet. Make sure you can go for when you signed up, okay? And if you signed up and you don't go, that does not count for service. You have to go, okay? All right. So there's a Concord Canoe meeting tonight at 7 in the Structures Lab. Please go if you're interested, if you're on the team. Steel Bridge meeting. You guys? Yeah, Shane?
We're going to start meeting again next Tuesday, 10 o'clock.
That's in CB 234. Okay. So Steel Bridge, Tuesdays at 7. Awesome. Okay, so there's one more stadium cleanup. It's going to be an afternoon game again, so hopefully the weather's nice. So we've had a discussion, and 2 stadium cleanups now counts for your travel as well. And 1 cleanup will cover your registration. So please take advantage of that. You can thank Dr. Borough. Yes. But yeah, I'm sure that's fine. Yeah. Okay, so please take advantage of this. This is awesome. And it probably won't be this way again next week, okay? All right. So now I'm going to introduce our speaker, Kurt Miller. He's a professional structural engineer with 26 years of experience. He specializes in engineering and construction management. He began his career as a laborer in the construction industry. And he's now the VP and Chief Construction Engineer at Stanley Consultants, which is a global firm. He currently oversees the construction services operations for the company and is directly responsible for 230 plus employees around the globe. He successfully partnered with many contracting companies to complete several notable design build projects. Some of his accomplishments include 3 Cabela's retail centers, 2 LBS temples, the LBS Conference Center, and I-80 State Street to 1300 East, which is the accelerated bridge construction, which we saw in a different presentation. The Provocaine improvements and the West Side Connection. He's a 1994 grad from BYU. He got his BS in civil engineering, and he's married to Shalene Miller. Did I say that right? Yeah. Awesome. Former track star, and they have 3 kids. Braxton Taylor? Okay, sorry. And Colton.
My wife has an issue with number of letters in a name, and so she had to spell it weird. I mean, if you ask her any word, she can immediately tell you how many letters there are in that word. It's crazy. It's a good party trick that she does.
And Braxton's his son. So you know Braxton.
Braxton.
Yep. Okay. So, please join me in welcoming Kurt Miller to our seminar.
Can you hear me? Everybody hear me? Typically, I don't need one of these things because I am rather loud, as my son can probably attest. I do have to say I'm very glad that we are not doing this over in the Clyde building. When my son decided he wanted to go into engineering, he spent a couple years in the medical side, and decided that wasn't for him. So he decided he wanted to switch over, and we went over into the Clyde building, and I literally got PTSD. I started stressing. It was crazy. I started sweating, thinking, do I have an assignment due? It was crazy. I mean, it was bad. So I'm glad we're over here, because this is a new building, and wasn't here when I was here. So the other thing I really have to apologize. 26 years in the construction industry. If I swear, I do not mean to. I promise you, I do not mean to. Part of the problem is on my family crest, our family motto is "aw shit." I'm German. It's not a swear word. At least it isn't in my family. So I got it out, so I don't need to do that. I really appreciate the opportunity to come here, talk to you guys. I really, I truly believe in giving back. Most people, my wife, if you talk to my wife, her years here at BYU were the greatest of her life. She loved it. Heavily involved in athletics. She just loved it. I hated college. Every second of it. I'll talk a little bit about that, and you'll understand a little bit more why. But we've donated to the university every year since we graduated. A lot of our donations go to the athletic department. I'm not so sure this year with the football record that we have that that's the right place I should be sending my money. But no, we appreciate giving back, love giving back, and I appreciate the opportunity to be here. If I can, I kind of wanted to go through why I became an engineer, steps that I took to get there. I think I have a little different path than most people. But a couple of the reasons why I became an engineer. Engineering is really in my blood. My father is a structural engineer. My brother is a water wastewater engineer. Me. My nephew is I don't even know what kind of engineer he is. He just graduated a few years ago. And then my son is in engineering. Kind of is in our blood. It's kind of been in our family for forever. My grandfather came over from Germany, and he came over in between the world wars, and the whole family came together. He had actually joined the church, and the whole family came together, pooled their money to send him, because he was the oldest, to America to give him a better chance. Well, when he was here, and started having kids kind of during the Depression, and kind of the same thing. He didn't have the money to send all of his kids to school, so he sent the oldest kid to school. And my father became an engineer. It was kind of interesting way he became an engineer. How many of you guys have seen October Skies, the movie? Great movie, isn't it? All right, so at the exact same time that these kids were working on these model rockets, my father was in Sacramento, and he was working for Aerojet General. And he was on the East Coast. You had Dr. Kirshner, who was working there, and on the West Coast at Aerojet, you had Admiral Rayburn, they were trying to get something into space. My father was the nozzle engineer for the Polaris rockets, which actually was the first rocket, anything that we actually got into space. So my father was working on this, and he was the chief engineer. And he was doing the exact same thing these kids were doing, but he was shooting real rockets in the air, and watching them tumble to the ground, and watching them blow up, and everything. Well, Admiral Rayburn came to my father and said, "We cannot name you as an engineer on this without an engineering degree." So you need to get to Sacramento State is where he's at, and you need to get an engineering degree. Well, the only engineering degree they had was civil engineering. So he got into the program, worked full-time, and it took him 10 years to graduate from college because he was working full-time and what he was doing. I'm sure there are a lot of people here it's taken a long time to get through college. Maybe not quite that much. But growing up, I actually got to see a lot of cool things that my father got to do. Once he got done in Sacramento, we moved back to Utah. He grew up down in Price. And anybody from Price here? Nice. He grew up in Price, and his parents, they passed away at a fairly young age, and so he actually came back. We moved back to Price when I was young. And he actually worked for American Coal and was one of their executives. And so I kind of grew up in the coal mining industry, coal mining town. One of the super cool things that he got to be a part of is in the mines, in one of the mines, I think it was the Paiute mine that he was over, they went through and they dug out the coal, and when they dug it out, they found all of these dinosaur footprints on the ceiling. There were thousands of footprints from hundreds of different species of dinosaurs. There were so many of these footprints that the path going up to our house had big old 3-foot dinosaur footprints. Couldn't do that nowadays. I mean, you'd go to jail. But it was pretty cool. I thought, okay, this is the greatest thing in the world. I want to be what my dad is. So I wanted to be an engineer. So I had a couple problems with becoming an engineer. The first one, I had some learning disabilities when I was young. Really struggled. Struggled reading. And at least there was one good thing going for me. I was really bad at math. So, as a matter of fact, through junior high and into junior high, I was in resource reading and resource math. I struggled that much with it. It made me mad. It made me so mad that I could not understand it. And so I fought, for it. That puts me into high school. I wanted to come to BYU. I grew up in Price, coming up to football games. We've had season tickets at the stadium. Geez, I've been coming to games for over 40 years. My parents bought lifetime season tickets. They're now mine. So we've been fans of the university. Problem was, I struggled in school. So, I set that goal for myself that I was going to fight through it. When I was meeting with my counselor, she was asking me what I wanted to do. My junior year, I said I want to be an engineer. She laughed. She was like, yeah, you need to pick something else. She goes, you're done with math, you don't have to take any more math. I said, no, I want to take calculus. She just shook her head and said, you're crazy. So I fought through it. I got pretty decent grades, not great, but okay grades. But still, I needed to get into BYU. A couple of things that I had to do to overcome my issues is I had some scholarships. I was an okay athlete. I'm not going to say I was a great athlete. I was an okay athlete. I was good enough to play at the college level. BYU did not offer me a scholarship, though. I had scholarships from Utah and Utah State, but I chose instead to go play junior college. And I played down at Snow, and I had an opportunity to work on my grades, and I learned quick that I wasn't smart enough to play football and go to school. I struggled with my school. Went on a mission, ended up coming back, figuring I'd go back to Snow and play football. I was talking to Coach Edwards, and he just said, why? Just come to BYU, let's get you in, and just play here. So, a couple people you might recognize up there, well, you professors might recognize. That's Mohamed El-Wanibi, probably the best lineman to ever come through this college. He is the best lineman to ever come through the college. That's me right there. And me. But, so, I still had some issues. I wasn't on scholarship. My grades weren't quite good enough. So I went to UVU, struggled, actually got good enough grades at UVU. I guess it was UDSC at the time. Met a professor there. He was the dean of the math department. He actually made math click for me. All of a sudden, I understood it. And he helped me for 2 semesters, and all of a sudden math was okay. I could deal with it a little bit. Got my grades up, worked hard, applied to BYU. I was on the dean's list at UDSC. Applied to BYU, got rejected. I was like, what? Well, I found out that they don't replace grades if they're taking at different universities. So they just averaged the grades. Still didn't have high enough grades. So luckily through some of my opportunities at Snow, I got to know the president of the college really well. Went back down to Snow, talked to him, walked through the issues. He set up interviews with each of my professors. Now, I've retaken every one of these classes at UVSC and further. The professors allowed me to retake the exams, the finals. I retook all the finals, did well on them. They changed my grades. Okay, reapplied to BYU, got rejected. It's kind of ridiculous, isn't it? So, my wife's cousin at the time was the dean of the law school, currently the president of the university now. He wrote a letter for me. I had an opportunity to meet the Carlos Acey at the time. He was the president of the 70. He wrote a letter for me, applied again, got denied. My mother came into the university, sat down with the dean of admissions, and lectured him. So they accepted me. That's how I got into BYU. My acceptance letter, I guarantee, was different than anybody's in here. My acceptance letter said, you are accepted, but you will be on academic probation from day 1 until you graduate. Your grades will be watched. If you drop below a 2.5, you will have one more opportunity to raise your grades. So my grades got scrutinized throughout my college career here at BYU. The one thing I learned through this whole thing was, and it's kind of been the lesson throughout my life, is the way that you overcome issues is I decided at a young age nobody would ever outwork me. My son can attest to the fact that our family crest really should say, if you're not working, you're failing, or something like that, because we are always working. I love to work, it's one of my favorite things, but I decided at a young age nobody would ever outwork me. And I got a lot of outside help to get in. Graduated from BYU, I did not have the best grades in the world. And trust me, I struggled to get the grades that I got. My goal was to get a 3.0. I know there's a lot of people in here whose goals are 4.0 or above a 3.5 or something like that. That just wasn't happening for me. My goal was to get a 3.0. I got close, didn't quite get there. But, you know, I know a lot of people stand up here and probably say how amazing they were in college. I wasn't amazing in college. I struggled through the whole thing. I took a little different path. My father was a structural engineer. Here's the crazy part. Brilliant. Brilliant. He had no issues with school. My brother, no issues with school. Me, issues with school. So when I graduated, I thought for sure I'd go to work for my dad. Matter of fact, I didn't even look for a job. I figured I'm just going to go work for my dad and his little structural engineering firm. I graduated, went and talked to him, said, okay, I'm ready to work. And he goes, what do you mean you're ready to work? I said, you're not going to hire me? And he said, if you want to design it, you go out and learn how to build it. And so he told me to go get a job with a big construction company. So I ended up getting a job with Layton Construction. At the time, they were the largest contractor in the state of Utah. Ended up working for them for 10 years. Had an amazing, I loved my career there. I learned a ton in vertical construction. Had the opportunity to build some amazing buildings. Couple of things that I had a chance to build. You know, as an architect, you always want to put your mark on a landscape of a city. I had an opportunity. The funny thing is, this picture, you can't see the building that I built. It's actually, anybody from Seattle? Seattle Starwood Hotel. You guys know it's downtown Seattle. It has a dome on it, or a pyramid on it like that, but it's back behind here. I had a chance to build that building, be a part of the construction team. A couple of the engineering issues that we ran into building that building. It was a 37-story, some medium height, not real tall, building, but our staging area, typically you have a big lot to stage in. Our staging area was about the width of the front of this room. It was the alley. So we had to stage everything through there. So one of the first things I got involved in was helping design a jib for the end of the boom that was articulating so that as we lifted things, we could lift them, pivot, and then push it into the building. It was challenging, to say the least, but it also made it to where we had to literally schedule every piece, everything that went into the building. Every part, every piece, everything that went into the building had to be on a schedule. Because we had to pick it up in certain orders, so we had to schedule how it got loaded onto trucks, just to maximize our time. A great building. Seattle in the winter. Next, I served my mission in Sweden. Next to Sweden's the coldest place I've ever been. 30 stories up when it's raining. No, thank you. That's why I live in St. George. A couple of the other cool buildings that I had an opportunity to build. Glendale, Arizona, the Cabela's Retail Center. Yes. Oh, you like it? It's a great building, isn't it?
Very great one.
So, the Lehigh Cabela's had just been built, and it was the fastest retail construction that had ever been done. They built that in 8.5 months. That's flying. What made it possible to do that was they actually had a pad that was pretty much ready for them to go. Utilities were run pretty much up to the pad. That made it so they could fly and go. Well, Cabela's got this bright idea. When we did this next job out, let's put a time component to it. Yeah, my company at the time, Layton, decided we could build this building in 6.5 months. That's a 200,000 square foot storage area in the back, warehouse. About the nicest custom cabin you can imagine on the inside. A 50-acre site with over a mile of 96-inch stormwater pipe under the parking lot. All this in 6.5 months. I was the chief construction manager on the project, so it was my project. Cabela's said it could not be done, but they were going to hold us to it. About midway through the project, all the executives came down and walked the site, pulled me aside. They were not happy. They said, there's absolutely no possible way you will finish. And I was like, well, we'll finish. So we went to 24-hour a day, 7 days a week, 400 people. And Braxton could probably attest to this. They didn't see me much. I had several weeks where I had 120, 140 plus hours a week. Slept in the trailer on the job site, had a cot I slept on. It was crazy. The schedule for this building would have filled that wall. It was crazy. We finished 1 day early. Cabela's has this event at the end where it's an appreciation for the contractors. They bring all the contractors in and they say, thank you. The owner, the chief executive owners of Cabela's walked up and said, pick a gun. Any gun. And so I went, picked the one I wanted. They said, thank you. So, needless to say, between my dad and my two brothers, I think we spent another $10,000 there. So, a couple of the really cool things that they did, if you're from Arizona and you go to Cabela's, as you're going into the museum, on the right-hand side, there's a big old picture. And it's my father, back in the 1950s, bow hunting. He's got an old recurve bow that says, has his name, Lee Miller, 1950, whatever. And it's pretty cool. The other neat thing is, this is actually right down at the bottom. You can't really see it. What is it, Braxton? The guy that carved the mountain carved my kids' names into the bottom of the mountain. They know where it's at. So when they go, they get to go see it and check it out. So, but it's kind of inconspicuous. But schedule was what was driving that project. It was crazy. It was a good one though. And the funny thing is, one of the things that I've learned through my career is the most challenging projects that I absolutely hate end up being probably my favorite projects that I ever did. When people ask me what I did in vertical construction, the Cabela's is the #1 thing that I talk about because it was the hardest thing that I did, but we were successful at it. A couple other things that I've had an opportunity to build. The LDS Conference Center, a lot of people have probably been there. I was in charge of all of the bowl, all of the concrete. It was all precast concrete. I was in charge of all of that. Now, the engineering challenge there was, it's not a circle, it's not a semicircle, it's a very odd shape. And so we found that even though each of these pieces, concrete steps, was the same in some regards, we could only use one form for 3 pieces. We had 17,000 pieces that went in here. It was I mean, that destroys any chance to have speed in a schedule because we're reforming every 3rd piece. We came up with an idea on this one that we would heat form what's it called? I have it, my brain went. Styrofoam. And we would actually mold, cut out of the styrofoam the mold for the concrete. And we poured it in the styrofoam. We found we could get about 3 pieces out of each one. And so we would cut them, pour 3, junk it. Go to the next one. By doing that, we were able to actually meet the schedule and get all the pieces in there. It was a lot of fun, extremely challenging, but yeah, I don't know if I'd want to do that one again. Albuquerque, New Mexico Temple and the Billings, Montana Temple. Billings, Montana Temple. Anybody from Montana? Great temple. That one went like clockwork. It was a great one. I had heard all these horror stories about working for the church. That was great. Thought, what in the world? Then came Albuquerque. Albuquerque, the architect wanted, you can kind of see the color, it's almost a light pink color. They wanted it to match the rock of the surroundings. So we actually had to pour the panels in a very controlled environment. One of the issues that we ran into is the plant that we were doing the concrete at was in West Valley, and then they were shipping them to Albuquerque. They were coming out, and you'd see this sanding through the panel, and nobody could figure out what was going on. So I took a trip back, watched how they were pouring the panels. And what they were doing is the guy operating the vibrator was throwing it out and dragging it back instead of jabbing it in. So I gave them a lesson on the proper way to vibrate a panel. And the panels came out, they went up, completely acceptable to the church, but there was a problem. They were not acceptable to me. So we redid a ton of the panels. We refaced all of the panels. And when the church asked me why I was doing it, I was saying, look, this is the house of my God. I'm not going to walk away from this and have to answer someday to it and say I didn't do as good a job as I could do. We did not make a lot of money on that project. And I learned why people say you don't want to work for the church. Because in my case, it was because I wanted perfection. So it was very difficult to handle. After that, Cabela's, the market in 2006, 2007, 2008, all of a sudden started, I saw a trend of vertical construction not being a great place to be. Stanley Consultants had been recruiting me for a while, trying to get me to come to work for them. I ended up leaving Layton and coming to work for Stanley Consultants. At that time, they needed a construction manager. They had a very difficult project that hadn't been done. I got to speed up. Time flying. I'm horrible at this. I prepare way too much. But anyway, they wanted to get a construction manager for this I-80 State Street and 13th East project. We were using accelerated bridge. You guys said you had a presentation on this already. Who gave it? UDOT did it? Okay, UDOT had hired us to manage it. I was the RE on the project for UDOT. So I managed the project for UDOT. Quickly, lots of challenges with this kind of construction. It had been done one other time in the United States, and that was in Utah. But it was one small bridge. We were doing 13 bridges, 6 of which were accelerated bridge. That's where we built them off-site. Those of you who don't know what accelerated bridge is. We built them off-site on shipping containers. Picked them up with it's called a SPMT, Self-Propelled Modular Transport. tons of wheels, and it can keep it perfectly level as it drives. You pick them up, drive them down the freeway, and then jack them down into place. You can kind of see the jacks there. You set them on those jacks, and then they jack them down into place. Challenging? It's a 3 million pound bridge. Extremely challenging. The biggest challenge, though, was after we got them in place. We set the first one. This was actually the first bridge. We set that bridge in place, and then the challenge came. We had to drive another 3 million pound bridge over the top of it. That obviously wasn't, they didn't take that into account when they were designing the bridge. You can't do that. You'd have to overbuild that bridge so much. So what we ended up doing, we ended up getting together with the structural engineers. The whole design team talked about what in the world we could do. What we ended up doing was we ended up coming in on the existing side street, and the big issue was the utilities under the roadway. The water line was 100 years old. The sewer line was 100 years old. These were old, very fragile lines that we could not put too much pressure on or we'd break. And we couldn't take them out of service for more than a couple hours because they didn't have loops that could service the area. So we ended up coming in, filling about 1.5 to 2 feet of soil. Then we took railroad ties and completely covered it with railroad ties. Then we put big steel plates on. That way we were distributing the load as much as we possibly could over the whole roadway. And then the very first bridge, we had the lead structural engineer, myself, and a whole survey crew that were monitoring every girder, making sure that it didn't deflect more than what was acceptable. Went through, nothing broke. It worked perfect. We were able to move forward. The problem came in once we turned the water back on. These water lines hadn't had water shut off in forever. The water lines down a mile down the road where there were bends couldn't handle the pressure coming back. And we actually blew out a couple elbows. Luckily, we could get in and fix them without a lot of problem. Luckily, they weren't right underneath the bridge abutments and the bridge to destroy the bridge. But it was extremely cool, a really hard project. It was actually featured on the History Channel, World's Toughest Fixes. We had a filming crew come out. They did a whole show on it. If you guys get a chance, go. You can find it online. Watch it. It's pretty neat. Recently, the last project that I just finished on, Braxton actually worked on this one for a couple years, was the Provo West Side Connector. I'm sure you guys all know that project. It goes from I-15 out to the airport. It's a greenfield project. You guys know what a greenfield project is? It's going out through the middle of fields. There's nothing there. There's no utilities. All there were fields and swamp. The big issue there was we were going through swamp. We actually had to, do you guys know what surcharge is? Who's in soils? You guys talked about wick drains today? Okay, we actually had to come in and put 170,000 lineal feet of wick drains starting right here to about right here. And that was, they drilled down as far as they could drill. They put these perforated drains down in and then capped them off. And then they put the soil on top of them. We built up to the subgrade of the road, and then we surcharged. We put 6 to 8 feet of surcharge soil on top of that to push it down and settle the soil as quickly as we could. We had to leave the surcharge on for a year to get the settlement. right up here, next to I-15, we got over 3 feet of settlement. Ground settled about that much. Was challenging because right here we had 2 HDPE pipes that were about 5 foot diameter going under for the water to flow. We had to camber those enough to handle that settlement so that when it was done, it was level. When we were done, they got it within an inch. It was extremely good engineering. Recently, this project won the most outstanding project for the UC&D, Utah Construction Design. That was this last year. And this morning I found out we won another award for ACEC. Last week I was doing a presentation to ACEC for an award there. So, neat project. It was fun to be able to work on it. So my career has been a blast. I absolutely love what I do. It's a little different in that I went a construction route. I was still able to do a lot of engineering. The one thing I did find, most big construction companies, their leadership are engineers. And so I had a lot of opportunity to do engineering on the way. I've done a lot of other projects besides these. These are just kind of some of the highlights. Any questions on any of that? And I only got a couple minutes. I picked a Seiko. So, any other questions on that? All right, I'll tell you a little bit about the company that I work for. We're a global engineering firm. We have about 1,000 members throughout the world. We have about 20 offices in the U.S. This doesn't even show some of our smaller offices. We have one in St. George. We have one in North Dakota. That does show Boise. But, so we have offices throughout the United States. We also have offices globally. Big offices in Guam. We do most of their engineering and construction management. Jamaica, we do most of their engineering and construction management. And we do a lot of work in the Middle East. Not as much as we used to. We used to have 12 offices in the Middle East alone, but it's gotten a little, matter of fact, we only have people from the Middle East that work in the Middle East now. So, we are truly we have variety. We have every engineering discipline that there is pretty much that works for our company. Depending on where you're at in say Denver, our office is mainly power and energy, electrical engineers. Utah, civil engineers. Iowa, where our corporate headquarters, they're chemical engineers and electrical engineers, some civil. The portion that I'm over, is this wedge, and that wedge. And that is our construction management, construction inspection, and our construction administration. It takes me all over. I don't travel globally. They want me to, but I have a guy that is in Guam that does that.